Okay, so we'll start sitting with legs crossed, if that feels okay for you. Reminder that if you have access to a chair, particularly a kind of upright sort of a chair, then that can be a fantastic prop to use in your yoga practice. So I'd really invite you to explore that. Not just as something to resort to when there's a pose that perhaps doesn't feel appropriate for where your body's at in that moment, but also just out of curiosity to expand your practice. So for example, as an alternative to sitting in Sukhasana, you could at some point, doesn't need to be now, might be in the future, or if you're watching this on recorded, you could sit on an upright chair with knees a bit further apart, but still with feet firmly planted on the floor. So you're still inviting a little bit of opening around the hips. So, and you can play around with things like placing height under the feet if that feels like it gives you a bit more contact with the floor. So feel free to, particularly if you're watching this on recorded and can hit pause for a moment, to take your time to set yourself up now and into a comfortable seated position, and if possible, one where you're inviting a little bit of opening around the groins and the hips. As you start to settle into your Sukhasana or whatever other seated position you may have chosen, just paying attention to any final physical adjustments you might want to make. So at this point, you're observing the body from the outside, if you like, making any physical movements, adjustments until you're in a position, a place where you feel like the position is sustainable. And then as you reach that point, starting to bring your attention inwards a little more. So closing your eyes or softening your gaze can help with that. And starting to focus on your breath a little more too. Using your breath to bring your awareness inwards to your inner experience of being in your body in this moment. On your next inhale, seeing if you might have a sense of breathing up through the spine, finding a little more length in the spine. On your next exhale, see if you can find a softening in the face, shoulders, coming all the way down the body through to the sit bones softening and releasing. Continue using the breath in this way, at whatever pace feels right for you. So you might find yourself taking a little bit more time over each inhale, each exhale, as you explore, notice length and space on the inhale, softening and release on the exhale. And with that softening and release, a greater awareness of your connection with the ground. Staying with the breath in this way, so stay with the breath being with the inhale, the exhale. As you gradually, at your own pace, make a transition now to be more fully with the breath. So shifting your perspective, moving your focus away from the body now and more fully to the breath. And as you do that, let go of any sense of controlling the breath. So if you've consciously lengthened the inhale and the exhale, let that go now, but stay with the breath until you find yourself just being with the breath as it comes in, as it goes out. I invite you during your practice today to perhaps notice or develop awareness of the shifting perspectives that our yoga practice can offer us. So thinking about the process that we've just gone through in the opening moments of this session, we might think about that in terms of shifting our perspective from an external awareness of the body as we literally move the body into place, make adjustments, look at the shape of the body, to then moving our perspective to being more within the body, developing an awareness of our experience from within of being in our bodies, and then shifting that perspective again to simply being with the breath, and in doing so coming to a deeper, stiller part of yourself perhaps, or however you might experience that and however you might describe it. We can also think about the shifting perspectives that our physical practice offers us as we literally put ourselves into different positions. You know, we might be kind of upside down in some sort of way if we think about something like downward dog or a standing forward fold, for example, and just really, you know, offering us different perspectives on the world in a more literal sense. So you might just want to bring that with you to your practice today. Notice that in whatever way resonates for you. So just take a moment to come back to the breath again in the same way as we were just now, just being with the breath for a moment, just to settle back to that place of stillness for a moment. Just tuning back into the breath in its natural rhythm. And if you want to set an intention for your practice, then take a moment to do that now. Okay, so we're just going to ease out through the neck a little. So if you feel completely comfortable where you are, then feel free to stay as you are. If you're sitting cross-legged, then you might want to explore changing the cross of your legs. If you want to move to another seated position or have a go with sitting on a chair, as described earlier, feel free to do that. And then just coming back to a settled place. When you're ready, use an inhale to draw your chin over to your right shoulder, just exploring range of movement here. And then exhale back to center. Inhale over to left shoulder. Exhale back to center. Continue at your own pace, using the breath to guide you. You're just exploring, not trying to get anywhere or find a a maximum range of movement here, but just exploring and inviting maybe a little bit of easing out, maybe a little more opening or release around the neck as you do that. Next time your chin comes over to the left shoulder, draw it back to center and stay there. On your next exhale, draw your right ear towards your right shoulder. So again, you're just finding some easing out here. Keep the shoulders drawing down. As you next inhale, come back up to center. And then exhale, left ear towards left shoulder. Inhale to center. Again, just continue at your own pace. So shoulders are still releasing down here. You're just easing the ear over to the shoulder so that you can start to find a little bit of opening, maybe a little bit of release on the opposite side of the neck. And if you notice any, at any point that it feels like there's some welcome release there and it feels good to stay there for a few breaths, perhaps breathing into that part of the neck, breathing out to cultivate that sense of release, then feel free to do that. And just taking this time to not to sort of on a physical level find some ease, but also just taking this time of relative quietness and stillness to just check in with this part of the body, just to notice how things are for the neck right now. Next time you draw left ear to left shoulder, and then draw back up to center, then stay there. Okay, so we'll continue exploring and easing out with some cat-cow movements. So you can either do those from seated, again, either sitting on a chair, this time with knees facing forward, feet firmly planted, or you can do them from sitting in Sukhasana. So if you're taking them seated, you've got hands on the knees so that you've got something that the hands can press against as you draw shoulders back, chest forwards, and then can slide the hands against the knees as you then draw the shoulders forwards and the spine back. So that's just an offering to you if you want to explore taking cat-cow from seated. Other option is to come to all fours and taking your cat-cow from all fours. So you don't need to overthink it, but equally just watch out for you know, in your yoga practice going into that autopilot where you just sort of always do what you always do. Just notice what maybe the body might and mind might welcome in this moment. Wherever you're taking your cat-cows from, if you haven't already, ease into them at your own pace, just knowing that each time you're inhaling, you're drawing the shoulders back to create space for the chest to draw forward, allowing the tailbone to tip up or to draw back if you're seated. Each time you're exhaling, the middle of the spine is drawing back if you're seated, you're drawing up towards the ceiling if you're on all fours, you're letting the head drop, letting the tailbone draw in. And again, just continue with this at your own pace. If it feels welcome, you might extend the inhale and the exhale. And again, you might think about that shifting perspective of, first of all, focusing on just settling into the movement, making any physical adjustments to make sure it feels comfortable. And then once you've kind of focused on getting the movement, then perhaps the focus comes inwards a little more. closing the eyes or softening the gaze, maybe to help with that, as well as using the breath, so using movement with breath, so that your awareness is how this feels within, how the body feels within when you take this movement. So that each time you're inhaling, you're noticing and finding space in the body. So, and in that sense, there's not an effort. Of course, you're putting in some physical effort as you move, but there's, you know, you're not having to kind of work hard to make space. It's more that the breath, the inhale is finding, noticing where the space is in the body, and you can breathe into that. And as you exhale, you're noticing and finding where there's a sense of release and softening. And perhaps that release and softening also translates as a sense of connecting more fully with the ground beneath you. Feel free to take any variations on your cat-cow here. So you might want to draw, if you're on all fours, you might want to draw back and forth. So you're coming into a sort of child's pose and then forward, or you might get your hips involved a little more. Lovely. Okay, coming back to stillness now. So in a moment, we're going to explore puppy pose. So I just want to, before we go into that, I just want to kind of show you where we're going with puppy pose, and then also offer another option here. So with puppy pose, we'll be creeping forward with the hands, bringing forehead to the mat, hips are staying above the knees. So it's this kind of thing. You might have support under the head as well here if the mat feels a long way away. So this is one option. If taking puppy pose doesn't feel right for you, particularly if it doesn't feel right around the shoulders, for example, which can be a common thing, then a couple of other things that you can explore here would be extended child's pose, if that feels okay for the shoulders. You can take the knees a little wider and explore in this way. The other thing that you could explore would be coming to the wall, pressing hands against the wall. This picture's at just the wrong height for me to show you properly. But yeah, hands are pressing against the wall, and then you're pushing the wall away from you as you draw the hips back. And again, you can still start to find that kind of sinking of the chest action downwards that we explore in puppy pose. So that could be another thing you could explore there. So I'll talk us into puppy pose, but feel free to explore either of those options, and I'll keep an eye on what people are doing in case you want any further guidance. If you feel okay to explore coming into puppy pose, then be in all fours now. Just check that hips are directly above the knees. Fingers are spread nice and wide, so as if you're trying to kind of make a big handprint with each hand on your mat. And then start slowly to step your hands forward, just one small step at a time. And as you do that, each time you replace the hand, consciously really engage the hand with the mat, so that there's always a sense of you almost kind of pressing the ground away from you with your hands. So don't let the hands become passive as they go further forwards and you haven't got that weight of the shoulders above the wrists anymore. Keep pressing into the mat with your hands until the hands get far enough away that it really feels like your chest wants to start to release down towards the mat. Let that happen. Not that the chest is going to reach the mat, but it starts to draw down towards the mat until you get to a point where your forehead comes to rest on the mat. And if the mat feels a long way away, then take some support to bring the ground up to meet you so that the forehead can rest on something here. if this doesn't feel comfortable on the neck, then I would really recommend exploring a different option here, exploring the extended child's pose maybe, or maybe coming to the wall pose. Whichever pose you're exploring now, again, once you've kind of got yourself physically into that pose and into a pose where you feel like you can sustain that for some moments yet, as we pause here, then see if you can bring the awareness inwards, come to the breath. And just notice where the space is that you can breathe into on the inhale here. Maybe there's space in parts of the body that don't often get much attention or don't usually feel so spacious. Use the exhales to notice and find where you can release a little more, a sense of softening or a sense of releasing towards the ground a little more. Okay, if you're in puppy pose or extended child's pose, then bring your hands alongside your head now, palms facing down. And as you next inhale, push the ground away from you as you draw yourself back up to an all fours position. Use an exhale then to draw bum back towards the heels. Take the knees a little wider if you want to, or you can keep them as they are. Draw your forehead down to the mat, or you could take forearms underneath the forehead, coming into a child's pose. If you haven't got arms underneath the forehead, then if it feels okay for you, take the arms back behind you, back so the hands can rest on the mat. So you can allow a bit more release of the shoulders. And again, if you've got support available that you can take between the bum and the heel, so you've got connection there, or support underneath the forehead, which can also help with connection between bum and heels, then feel free to take that. Bring the awareness inwards once you're settled and comfortable. And again, inhaling, noticing where the space is in the body now. Exhaling, noticing where there's release. So you're not having to kind of, not forcing the release there, you're just noticing where the exhale just kind of facilitates that softening and release. Okay, bring your hands alongside your head. Use an inhale to draw yourself up. Come back to your all fours. And this time we're going to come into downward dog. So you can, so we'll do that in a moment. So again, either you can take downward dog as standard, you could take your extended child's pose, or you could again explore this downward dog version against the wall. And again, these versions aren't offered as a kind of a poor cousin of taking full downward dog, but as something to explore, you know, so out of curiosity or, you know, something different to explore. So whether it's now or watching this on recorded, then I'd invite and encourage you to explore these variations. If you're coming into a standard downward dog, take the hands a little further forward before you do, so that shoulders are no longer directly above the wrists. Find that same sense of actively engaging the hands, pushing the hands into the mat, as we explored when we came into puppy pose earlier. tuck the toes, draw navel in towards spine. And as you inhale, draw the hips up and back. Keep that sense of the hands pushing the mat away from you as you raise the hips high. And again, spending a moment here, just focusing on the physical aspects of coming into whatever pose you're in, finding that engagement with the hands, finding a lift in the hips if you're in downward dog, or if you're pressing against the wall, then an active drawing back of the hips. And then see if you can bring the awareness inwards. Come to the breath to help you with that. So that as you're inhaling, you're noticing and finding space and length in the body, space along the spine, along the side body. As you're exhaling, you're noticing where you might release a little more, perhaps the face softens, the head, the neck. Perhaps with that release, there's a sense of releasing and breathing down into the earth, through the hands, through the feet. Again, this might happen naturally, but you might want to explore extending the inhale and the exhale. And as you sit with this awareness from within, trust that awareness, trust your body and your breath to let you know what's right for you in this moment, rather than jumping into your head and figuring that out. So it might be that spending some breaths in downward dog and then drawing knees down and coming into extended child's pose is right for you. It might be that some breaths in downward dog and then coming to the wall and exploring the wall version of downward dog is right. Just staying with the breath, trusting that. Okay, so we're going to make our way into a standing forward fold. If you're in downward dog, or if you want to come up into downward, or make your way into downward dog in order to then come to standing forward fold, feel free to do that. Otherwise, you can come to standing. If you're coming from downward dog, if you're not already, start to walk your hands back towards your feet now. Keep that sense of the hips lifting high as you do that. Be aware of the weight coming more fully into your feet until you can then let the hands go, let the arms and the shoulders release, head and neck releasing down. If you're standing and you haven't already, have hands on the hips, take an inhale, and then as you exhale, hinge from the hips, draw the chest forwards and down, coming into your forward fold in that way. So legs can be as bent as they need to be here in order for you to feel like you can really allow the upper body to release here. Allow the head and the neck to release. You could have the arms hanging down, or you could be holding on to opposite elbows, whatever feels right for you. Another really nice way of taking this forward fold would be to sit on, to have a chair. So I haven't got a chair handy today, but if you can imagine that I'm sitting on a chair, would be to sit on a chair and then come into your forward fold. So chest drawing forwards and down, belly coming to rest on the thighs, head hanging down. So that could be a really nice way of exploring forward fold too. See if the awareness can come in a little more, being with the breath, inhaling, finding space in the body. So yes, the inhale, you might be focusing on keeping that lift in the hips as well. But see if you can, in the interest of really bringing the awareness inwards, keep using the inhale to notice and find space in the body and breathe into that. Find the where the expansion and space is in the body here. And then exhaling, seeing if you can find a little more softening and release. Maybe for the last few breaths, extending the exhale a little longer than the inhale. That's breathing out through the mouth. That feels good. Okay, so from here we're going to come to a halfway lift. So on your next inhale, draw yourself up to your halfway lift. So palms of the hands are resting on the front of the legs, wherever they need to be, so that you then feel that you can use a gentle press of the hands against the legs to draw the shoulders back, to create space for the chest to draw forward. So again, legs are however feels comfortable for you. You know, they don't need to be straight. If it feels right for them to have a bend, right to have a bend in the knees, then do. Shoulders are drawing back, chest is drawing forward, crown of the head is drawing forward. So try and avoid the temptation to kind of look up here. It can kind of feel like that sort of pose, but keep the head in a position where you feel like the crown of the head is drawing forward, and at the same time the hips are drawing back. So you're finding that length in the spine and in the side body in the same way as we do in downward dog, for example. And again, another way to explore this would be to come to the wall and take that same sort of pose with the wall that I've already talked about here. Stay with this for a few more breaths if you can, just knowing this is your practice. So if what feels right is to release into a forward fold for a few breaths and then come back up, or to come up to mountain pose and then come down, feel free to do that. But wherever you are, see if you can bring the awareness inwards. Again, inhaling, finding space, exhaling, finding release and a sense of greater connection with the ground. Lovely. Okay, on your next exhale, release back down into your forward fold for a moment. And then bring hands onto the hips. And on your inhale, draw yourself all the way up. So noticing as you do that, that you sort of come through your halfway lift as the chest is drawing forwards and up. You're finding that same length that we just explored in the halfway lift, but this time you're drawing yourself all the way up, coming to your mountain pose. Come to step to the top of your mat and be in your mountain pose. And just take a moment to settle into your mountain pose. So just as we did in Sukhasana at the start, and as we've done with each of the poses we've come into, take a moment to pay attention to the physical aspect of being in your mountain pose, that the feet are feeling evenly weighted and rooted, that the tailbone is drawing down, or you've got that tilt to the pelvis, so you've got length in the lower back, maybe navel towards spine. See if you can allow the shoulders to draw back and down a bit more, maybe the arms to rotate so that they can allow the shoulders to stay in that position, elbow creases facing forwards, back of the neck is long. And then once you've paid attention to those physical aspects, then again, bringing the awareness inwards. Coming to the breath. Inhaling to find length and space. Exhaling to find softening and release. And in that softening and release, greater connection with the ground. Staying with the breath as you make that transition now to simply being with the breath. So letting go of any sense of control over the breath, allowing the breath to just be in its natural rhythm. Staying as close to the breath as you can. If you set an intention at the start of your practice, then take a moment to recall that now. And now bring palms of the hands together in front of the heart. As you next inhale, sweep the arms up, reach up with the fingertips. And then turn your palms to face forwards. As you exhale, cactus the arms down, so shoulders drawing back and down. As you bend at the elbows, draw the arms down until the elbows come into the side of the body and you can release the forearms down. Take this a few more times at your own pace with your breath. So inhaling, reaching up, and as you take that inhale and take that movement, you're finding length and space in the body. Palms facing forwards, and then as you exhale, shoulders are drawing back and down as you cactus the arms down. So keep the tailbone drawing down so that what you're not doing is the shoulders draw back and down is collapsing into the lower back and thrusting the ribs forwards. And what you want to do with this cactusing of the arms is for the shoulders to actively draw back and down within whatever range of movement feels right for you. If this doesn't feel right for the shoulders, then you could take some shoulder rolls here, one way and the other way. Lovely. Next time your arms come down by your sides, then stay there in your mountain pose. Bring palms of the hands together. Inhale, sweep the arms up. And then as you exhale, fold forward, so you're coming into your forward fold. As you next inhale, come to your halfway lift. Exhale to your forward fold. Inhale, draw the chest forwards and up, sweep the arms up, or you can have hands on hips as you come back up to standing. Exhale, bring palms of the hands together in front of the heart. Inhale, sweep the arms up. Exhale, fold forward. So feel that length on the side body as you fold forwards, and then inhale to your halfway lift. Exhale to forward fold. Inhale, hinge from the hips, draw the chest forwards and up, either hands on hips or sweeping the arms up. Exhale, bring palms of the hands together in front of the heart. So we'll take this one more time, and this time we will then, when we come into the forward fold, come into downward dog. As an alternative to that, if you want to then from your forward fold, I then take another repetition of the same thing rather than come back into forward fold, feel free to do that. Or again, you could make your way to the wall and explore that wall version of downward dog. So palms of the hands together. Inhale, sweep the arms up or have the hands on the hips. Exhale, fold forwards. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, fold forwards. Plant those hands in front of, slightly wider than the feet. And take a moment to see if you can bring a bit more weight forwards into the hands. As you next inhale, draw the right foot back. And then as you exhale, draw the left foot back. And then draw hips up and back, coming to your downward dog. Either staying in your downward dog or taking extended child's pose by exhaling knees down to the mat, bum back to the heels, forehead to the mat. Other option here, it would be to take full child's pose, taking the arms back behind you. So again, see if you can bring the awareness inwards so that you can tune into your inner experience of being in the body right now, and from that, know what feels right for your body in this moment. Stay with the breath. Okay, if you've taken child's pose and you feel okay to come up into a downward dog, then do that. We're going to make our way to a forward fold, so you could also just make your way up to standing from your child's pose if you want. If you're in downward dog though, start to walk your hands back towards your feet until you're in your forward fold. Lovely. On your next inhale, come to a halfway lift. Exhale to forward fold. Inhale, hinge from the hips, draw the chest forwards and up, either hands on hips or sweeping the arms up. Exhale, bring palms of the hands together in front of the heart. Release the hands down and come to a wide leg stance on your mat. So feet are at least a leg's length apart if that feels okay for you. Take a moment to, again, to sort of physically settle into this pose so that the feet feel firmly rooted. So there's a sense of active engagement through the ball of each foot, the heel, as well as the outer edge and the front of the foot. See if you can have that sense of the tailbone drawing down here. That's the sense of the hips hugging in a little. See if you can find a bit more engagement between the feet and the mat, almost as if you're trying to push the ground away from you with the feet. If it feels okay for you, have the legs straight. So of course, if it feels, if for the safety of your practice and your body, you need to have a micro bend in the knees, then do that. But if it's possible for them to be straight, then do that. Bring hands onto the hips, draw the shoulders back and down a little if you can to bring a bit more lift to the chest. Keep the tailbone drawing down. Take an inhale. As you exhale, hinge from the hips, draw the chest forwards and down. When you get to your inhale again, just pause for a moment and see if you can bring a bit more lift to the chest. So you're not drawing yourself back up, but just more that you're finding or refinding a sense of length in the front of the body as well as the back body, staying long. And then as you exhale, maybe explore releasing a little more. So it's not about trying to get the chest or the head anywhere, but can you find a bit more release until you get to a point where you can just release the upper body down in the same way that we would in our normal standing forward fold. You can either keep hands on hips or slide hands down the outside of the legs. And either keep the hands there, or if it feels comfortable for you, you could take the hands on the floor underneath your head. So that might be fingertips, might be palms of the hand. It might be, if you've got some kind of height that you can take under the hands, then you could explore that. Lovely. Come back to the breath. See if you can use the exhale to find release. Stay rooted through the feet, particularly the heels. So it can be easy to kind of end up sort of leaning forwards here as we try and kind of reach the floor, but stay firmly rooted. See if you can bring the weight back a little more. Trust in the back body to support you here. And see if you can use each exhale to find a little more sense of release. Lovely. Okay, so from here, if you've got hands on the floor, then fine. If not, then see if you can release the hands and take them onto the floor somewhere in front of you, wherever they need to go, so that they are in contact with the floor. And to start to now creep your hands forwards. So you're keeping your feet firmly rooted, but you're creeping your hands forward so that they're kind of there as they would be if you were in downward dog. So you're pressing the ground away from you with the hands, allowing the hands to creep forward. But so we're in a kind of wide leg downward dog. The only difference being that you keep the heels firmly rooted here. Lovely. Just a few more breaths here if you can. Steve, maybe see if you can take the weight back a little more so you're not tipping forwards quite so much. It might mean bringing the hands back a bit more. Lovely, lovely, really nice. Okay, and then start to creep your hands back. Keep your hands in contact with the ground now as you bring a bit of a bend to the knees. And once you've done that, bring your hands onto your hips. And then in your own time, use an inhale to hinge from the hips, draw the chest forwards and up, coming back up to standing. And then you can heel toe your feet back together. Great. Okay, so if you've got some wall space available, then great. Those of you that practiced with me on Tuesday know where this is going. If not, don't worry. I'll show you what we're doing, and then I'll show you alternatives for if you haven't got wall space, and maybe it's something you can try at another time. If you've already practiced with me this week, or you've done legs up the wall with me before, then feel free to get yourself into legs up the wall so you can maximize the time that you've got there. Feel free to go ahead and do that. But just to run through if this is an option for you. So a door, as long as no one's about to open it on the other side, a door can be quite a good way of accessing some wall space, as it were. But you want to start by lying alongside the wall with your hip as close to it as you can. And then you're lifting your legs up. And then using a kind of a press of the feet against the wall to help you then kind of push and wriggle the upper body round. So do take care coming into this, that this feels okay for the shoulders and for the back here, and take it steady. Don't be in a rush to get into it. Just really take it steady so you're not liable to jar anything. The other thing is, if this doesn't feel comfortable for the lower back, then having some support, even just a little bit of support underneath the sacrum, underneath the lower back, can be helpful. So you might want to get that in place. But really what you want to come to is a place where your legs are just relaxing against the wall. There's no effort going on with the legs here. The upper body is supported by the ground. You can bring your arms into that kind of mountain pose or shavasana rotation, so the shoulders release down, and you're allowing the wall and the ground to hold you. So if that's an option for you, make your way into that. Do feel free to kind of give me a wave if there's any further guidance I can offer you. Obviously, it's a bit tricky seeing all angles here. It looks like that's working for some of you. Other things that you can do here are, if you've got the edge of a sofa, you can do a similar thing. And in fact, an upright chair can even do it. So if I just kind of show you here a moment, you could explore doing something with the edge of a sofa. Again, just take care with the wriggling round part, but hopefully you can see at least some of what I'm doing here. And if you haven't got anything along those lines to access right now, then you can lie on your back and have knees directly up above the hips, so feet are off the ground. And you can either be here like that with the upper legs released here, or you could explore how it feels to straighten the legs a little. It's not quite as fully passive and held as legs up the wall, but you're still inviting that weightiness down through to the lower back. So hopefully you've all got something to access there. If you're in a fully passive and held pose where it feels like there is absolutely minimal or virtually no effort, physical effort required from you here, then settle into that pose. See if you can, again, go through that transition of bringing the awareness inwards, using the breath to find space on the inhale, to find release and softening on the exhale. If you're in a version of the pose that does require a little more in terms of physical holding or effort, and you kind of reach a threshold with that, then you might choose to then come into a position where you're on your back with knees hugging into the chest, and then take your feet down and come into Baddha Konasana. So lying on your back with knees drawn apart, soles of the feet resting together. So this is also a really nice alternative to the other poses that I've just shared with you. So that eventually, so we'll be here for a couple more minutes, but that eventually you're in a pose that feels as passive and supported as possible, so that as you have brought your awareness within, you can either stay with that, stay with using the breath to explore space in the body on the inhale, explore softening and release on the exhale, or you might perhaps explore making that transition to simply being with the breath. Slowly bringing your awareness back to the body. So maybe taking some deeper breaths. So you're kind of reversing that journey now in those longer, deeper breaths, finding that space in the body, finding release. And then take your time. So don't rush out of, particularly if you've got legs up the wall, don't rush. Come back out the way you've come in. So even if you feel absolutely fine, just take your time to do this. So kind of walking your feet along the wall and starting to use the push of the feet against the wall to help you shift around a little more, so that you end up then back where you started, alongside the wall. And then you can just come onto your side for a couple of breaths before you then push yourself back up. Take your time to do that, just knowing that once you have, then we'll be coming to our backs. So just coming to your back on your mat when you're ready, and hugging your knees into your chest. We're not quite at Shavasana, but we're heading that way. So you might want to just make sure you've got within reach anything, any blankets or extra layers or anything you want for your Shavasana. Once you're hugging knees into the chest, you can either be in stillness there, or you could take a rock from side to side. Just doing whatever feels good in this moment. So maybe it feels good to take the knees a bit further apart, to have them hugging in, to be still, to be rocking, just take a moment there. Right, keep the left knee hugging in and release the right foot down onto the mat, and then extend the right heel away so the right leg is resting on the mat. So you don't need to be active with the right leg, but it's resting out long on the mat. Keep the right hand on the left knee. You can release the left arm to rest on the floor at shoulder height. And then use an exhale to draw the left knee over to the right. So the left hip draws up off the mat and over to the right, stacking above the right hip. Right hand can be wherever feels comfortable. Left leg can be kind of suspended here, doesn't need to be in contact with anything. If you prefer to get some support in place, then you could do just a few more breaths here. Again, see if you can come inwards. Inhale, find space. Exhale, find softening and release. Now inhale back to center. Hug the left knee in one more time. Bend the right knee, sole of the foot to the mat, and then draw the right knee in, hug the right knee in now, and release the sole of the left foot onto the mat. Then release the left foot away. Keep the left hand on the right knee, release the right arm to the floor. And then when you're ready, use an exhale to draw the right knee over to the left. And again, settle in here with the breath. Inhaling, finding space, wherever that is for you. Might be the side body, across the chest. Might be somewhere else that you notice that expansion. Exhaling, finding that softening and release, again, wherever that is for you. Might be shoulders, face, jaw, hips. Inhale back to center. Hug the knee in one more time. And then release the foot down and make your way into your Shavasana, whatever that is for you right now. Finding your way into a position where you feel you can let go of effort, allow the ground to hold you, and going through that same process of making any physical adjustments so you really feel like you're in a position, in a place where you can just be for a few minutes now. And then starting to draw the attention inwards, closing the eyes or softening the gaze and coming to the breath. And seeing if you can, in your Shavasana today, take yourself through that same process as we've explored and noticed in the practice today, that shifting perspective from external inwards and perhaps deeper inwards. Starting with, as you come inwards, using the breath, find space, find release, and staying with the breath as you make that transition at your own pace, in your own time, to simply being with the breath, to maybe finding a deeper, stiller place within you. And just knowing that this space is held for you, while you do this. Starting now to bring some deeper breaths into your body as you make that reverse journey, bringing awareness back to the body from within, using the breath to help you with that. And gradually starting to bring a little more awareness externally to the body through movement, perhaps wiggling fingers and toes, rotating wrists and ankles, maybe gently moving the head from side to side. Starting to perhaps take some bigger movements, some stretches, perhaps some sighs or yawns. And then slowly making your way back up to any comfortable seated position, keeping the eyes closed or the gaze soft as you do that. Once you're there, take a moment, if you set an intention at the start of your practice, to recall that intention now. Bring palms of the hands together in front of the heart. And take a moment to thank yourself for making the time for this practice today. And a moment for us to be thankful that we have this practice of yoga available to us, and that we have this means of connection available to us so that we can come together and practice together. And I invite you also to think of anything else in your life that you're thankful for right now. Bowing your head towards your fingertips. Namaste. Releasing when you're ready. Thank you, guys.